So let's open up the app.js, and basically this is where majority of our code will actually be. Oops, I didn't mean to do that. So let me open app.js. And for now, this is pretty much the file that we need. So in here, you saw that. So before we had this get all students, and then this gives us a response. We get the JSON back, and then we console.log the array. And then we say return and then hello. So this is the actual HTML, which is seen on the browser. So hello React. So if we send a p tag, so we can send a p tag as well. So p, and just like that. And there we go. Save this. And oops. So it seems that app.js cannot parse position. And it seems that inside of my package.json, so in here, I did have this extra comma right here. So it's complaining about it. So let's see if I save this and let me reload in here. And I think I need to stop the server. So if I open up the terminal and then Control C, npm start, and there we go. So if I reload, and you can see that we have hello React, and this is a p tag. So what we're going to do is, if I close this package.json, and in here, let's go ahead and learn about how do we store the state for our application. So in here, let's go ahead and import. So here we're going to say, so let me put this full screen, and here we're going to say import, and then here I'm going to say use, and then state, and this will be from, and then React, just like that. And also we want to import use and then effect. So you'll see exactly what these two things will do in a second for us. But basically, use state allows us to manage state for our application. So here, let's go ahead and say that we want to have a const, and then here add these square brackets. And now I'm going to say students, and then here I'm going to say set and then students. So this is actually some destructuring, and this will come from equals to, and then use, and then state. And then the state that we want for this will be an empty array. So this is the initial state. And by the way, don't add initial state and then colon. So this is my IDE telling me that this is what I need to pass. So this is the name of this argument in here. So now end this with semicolon. And now what I can do is store the result from get all students into my state. And I want to run this get all students only once when the component loads. So when the component loads, I want to invoke this method only once. And this is where the use effect comes into place. So use and then effect, and this takes a function just like that, an arrow function. And inside we can do a bunch of things, right? So we can do a bunch of things. But what I want to do is to call this function, right? So use effect, I want to call it once when the component mounts. And for this, I need to add these square brackets, just like that. And this means 0 dependencies. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this in here. I'm going to create a new variable. So I'm going to say const, and then I'm going to say fetch, and then students. And this will be equal to, and then a function that will take no arguments. And in here, I'm going to paste that in. So get all students. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this console.log. Here we receive the data, which are the students. And then I want to say set and then students, and then pass the data. So now this students will contain the data coming from the backend. Now, when the component mounts, and in fact, let me just say console.log component is mounted. And if I save this, let me just save this, go back to the UI, and you can see that component is mounted right here. And we also have students is assigned a value but never used. So if I refresh again, you can see that this is only invoked once. So when the component mounts, we fetch, or we want to fetch all the students from the database. And here I'm missing a semicolon. So now I can say fetch and then students. And now this, so as we invoke this function, students will contain the array. And let's go ahead here and just say, so here we want to say add these curly brackets, and here we want to say students dot and then length. And if I save this, go back, and you should see that we have 2 in here, which means that we have 2 students that we fetched from the database. And also, let me just do this. So here I'm going to do this and then say console dot log and then pass data. So we want to log the data, and then we want to set the state. And to be honest, this is it. So you've learned about useState, which is used for managing the state for our application, and then useEffect in here. So useEffect has a couple of other tricks that we can do, where we can pass a dependency and only trigger this whenever the dependency inside changes. But in our case, we want to run this piece of code once as soon as the component is mounted. Next, let's go ahead and work on this UI.